Yep.
All right, go ahead and hit record.
Okay.
All right, chapter 2, the economic problem. So let's look at the economic problem. And we'll minimize. We'll have everyone down here. Okay, let me introduce you to the production possibilities frontier, and I may abbreviate this with PPF. Okay, production possibilities and opportunity costs. So the PPF is the boundary between those combinations of goods and services that can be produced and those that cannot be produced. All right, to illustrate the PPF, we're going to focus on 2 goods at a time and hold the quantities of all other goods and services equal. So let's look at a PPF. Colas and pizza. So what are 2, what do you see going on here?
The more pizza that you get, the less soda you buy.
The more pizza that you get, the less soda that you're able to produce. So let's look at it from production. The more pizzas I produce, the less sodas I can produce. Okay, so I want to introduce you to an economic model that every day in the mines and factories, construction sites, in the fields, in the offices, all across the United States, 142 million people produce a vast amount of goods and services. The value on these goods and services are approximately $60 billion. But the quantities of goods and services we've already identified are limited by the available resources and by technology. So if we want to increase the production of one good, and let's look at cola and pizzas, if we want to increase the production of one good, we must decrease the production of something else. Here we're looking at a trade-off. So the trade-off, if I produce 0 pizzas, how many million cans of cola can I produce?
I'm sorry, you said how many pizzas?
At point A, I see 0 pizza, 15 million cans of cola. But the trade-off is when I start to produce 1 million pizzas, the trade-off is what?
Like 14 million?
Well,
like your cola
what's the trade-off?
is going to go down.
By what amount?
1 million.
1 million. So the trade-off is 1 million. So to produce 1 million pizza, I give up 1 million cans of soda. All right, any point on the frontier is attainable. And the PPF is going to show you specifically what is attainable and what is unattainable. So any point along this curve we could say is attainable, but anything outside of this curve is unattainable. So this is one benefit to using the PPF. All right, here's this concept of efficiency. We achieve production efficiency if we cannot produce more of one good without producing less of some other good. So each one of these points, are we going to say is efficient? We can study the trade-off. All right, what's the opportunity cost? Now, because we're only studying 2 items here, we can identify what's the opportunity cost. So the opportunity cost is going to be the value or the cost of the item we're giving up. When we move from E to F, we can identify what's the opportunity cost. So here we're decreasing cola by 5 million cans. So be able to note when you look at this curve, and as we move from point to point along the curve, we can easily identify, under the PPF, we can easily identify what's the cost, what's the benefit. All right, so let's get to right here. All right, now what's going to happen? Tell me how this PPF is going to illustrate scarcity. I'm taking everything that we identified in chapter 1 and I'm putting it on a picture for you right now. So how's this going to illustrate scarcity to us? We said anything along this point is attainable. So it's attainable for me to produce 15 million cans of cola. Could I produce 16 million?
Apparently not. No. According to this graph.
No, it's unattainable. It's outside the graph. I'll say so. I'm going to say scarcity is of all the resources I have, I'm only able to make 15 million cans or produce 15 million cans of cola. So you could see what are the limits, what are the constraints that I'm under, and under these limits, we can illustrate scarcity. My resources are only capable of producing these various combinations. And again, anything outside of that being attainable, the scarcity is going to involve me making decisions on those available resources, making decisions along some combination along this curve. Okay, what we're identifying here is resources are not equally productive in all activities. Hence, you notice that we have an outward bound curve. So as I move from point to point, notice the trade-off was not equal. Note that the cost was not equal. And depending if you could argue the benefit was not equal. And because they're not being equal, we have an outward bound curve.
So if it was equal, would it be more of a straight line, I guess, then?
If it was equal, we would have a straight line curve. All right, let's look here. So you see as we move from point A to B to C to D, we are increasing the opportunity cost of a pizza. Because again, my resources, I'm dedicating more of those resources toward pizzas, and I'm not producing colas. The trade-off of one increasingly gets more. As I increase pizza production, I'm having to decrease soda production. Any questions on understanding or interpreting the production frontier? Let's look at one to illustrate efficiency. All right, so here we go. All right, right here. What's the marginal cost? What's the marginal cost of producing well, let's just explain what's happening to marginal cost.
The increase is going up.
So the marginal cost of producing more pizzas we're increasing. And we see the marginal benefit is decreasing. So we can't produce one additional good. We all remember this trade-off principle. Our trade-off is that we can't produce, as we decrease pizza production, as we decrease, we're increasing our capability of soda production. All right, now what do we see happens when we talk about being efficient? We're going to say marginal benefit. Whenever we see marginal benefit intersecting with marginal cost, this is when we're going to say an economy would be truly efficient. If all of your tax dollars, going back to taxes, if all of the taxes, if we continue to raise taxes, or let's say we're talking cutting taxes right now, if we continue to cut taxes, and that the trade-off, the marginal benefit for those enjoying lower taxes, if it equaled the marginal benefit, or excuse me, the marginal cost for those missing out on those tax dollars, you know, if we could ever reach a true point of intersection, we would say that our economy was in a balanced. We would say that we would hit true efficiency. I don't know of any time in national government, and I'm taking a macro approach here, but I don't know of any point that we've ever hit true efficiency. But I'll tell you, it's an economist's job is that this is the struggle that we play in economics. We understand our limitations. We understand the scarcity. We understand the choices we make, the trade-offs, and at what point can we reach economic cost equaling economic benefit? If we could ever reach that point, and while that might be heaven, that is our pursuit of efficiency. Reaching that point would say we would truly be efficient. All right, so talking about economic growth. What do we see here? The expansion of production possibilities. An increase in the standard of living is called economic growth, and two factors contribute to economic growth: technological change and capital accumulation. Technological change, the development of new goods and better ways of producing goods and services. It doesn't take long to realize, again, how technological changes have made better ways of producing goods and services. I mean, go all the way back to, again, to the computers we're using. No one's sitting here with a tape recorder right now listening to us, I'm assuming, because we know where computers are capturing the data. We're not physically all in one space under the same roof right now. And again, we've experienced economic growth for being able to offer this type of model. All right, capital accumulation. The growth of capital resources, and again, I'm referring to and including human capital. So because of increases in capital accumulation, as we accumulate more capital, we increase our production possibilities. And through increasing our production possibilities, we too will grow the economy. Now, the cost of economic growth. Expansion of production possibilities come without a doubt with a cost. And as we see, economic growth is not free. All right, so we can just think about what are some of the costs that we incur in the form of, because of benefiting from economic growth. Now let's look right here. Bet no one eats pizza tonight. All right, we can produce pizza or pizza ovens. So now we're substituting Cokes with, or colas with pizza ovens. What do we see at point P0? Or excuse me, PPF 0. So production point A.
Pizzas, 5 million pizzas.
5 million pizzas. How many ovens are we producing?
7.
At point A.
0.
0. All right, point B, what are we doing here?
3 million pizzas and 6 ovens.
6 ovens and 3 million pizzas. Now, do you see at that point B, speaking of this outward bound curve, where am I? I'm at or near the furthest point outward. If you look at the curve in itself, point B is the furthest point out on the curve.
Right. 4.
So we'll say at that point, what's happening?
Evening out.
Excuse me?
You're evening out a little bit on your sales of, production of pizzas and ovens.
You're efficient.
I'm becoming more efficient. All right, if you keep going through the presentation, you're going to see an example of a smoothie and a salad bar. That's going to walk you through a whole nother example if you're tired of looking at pizza and colas or pizza and pizza ovens. You're going to go through a whole nother example of salads and salads and smoothies, I mean. This is the point that I'm skipping here for the sake of time. And finally, let's look at these last 2 slides. The whole point of chapter 2 was to introduce you to the production frontier. Or excuse me, production possibilities frontier. And again, to put a picture to all of the topics that we discussed in chapter 1. All right, so economic coordination. we're going to look at these factors of production and we're going to see how all of these flow. So what do we have households doing? What direction are we flowing in?
Into the factors.
We're going in circular, but we go out to the markets using land, labor, and capital. Entrepreneurs, all are born out of the households. They in turn go out into the markets. They in turn go out into firms. They go out into the goods. We acquire goods and services. We take labor and we dedicate that labor to firms. We take land and we use that in a form of production. We use capital to start firms. We must first go out before we start a firm. Think of the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is born out of coming from the household out into the market. There's been some study of what type of firm we were going to introduce, what type of firm we're going to start. You are getting degrees right now. You already have your chosen field. So that's going to be your market. Upon getting this degree, you're going to enter working with some firm, or you're going to start your own firm. That's going to promote and flow you over into the goods. What you get from these firms, you're going to use for acquiring goods and services. And then you take those goods and services back into the home. Now let's look at the flow of money. So the flow of money is going to go in a counter direction. From the household, remember, we spend money on goods and firms. Okay, those goods and services that we have, they were bought or acquired through firms. And again, those firms, where did they gain the ability to give us the goods and services? It's through their respective industry. What supported those respective industry? Individual households. All right, now just think of this, doing laundry. Okay, I'm just, for the sake of time, you do laundry as a household. You went and you bought a good. You bought Tide. Tide, where did it come from? Procter & Gamble. There's your firm. Why did Procter & Gamble, why did they even produce Tide? Because folks needed to do laundry. There's the factor. Now, what supported them to continue producing Tide? The fact that households bought their product. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. All right, think about the next time you go out and purchase laundry detergent, hopefully, and maybe you'll look at it in a different way right now. All right, that's it for chapter 2. So if you're recording for me, please hit stop recording.